welcome to Tomorrow. My name is Space Mike, and I am very happy to be joined today by our own Jamie Higginbotham, the Photon Empress, Jared Head, our resident astronomer, Ryan Caton, I just mispronounced your name again wrong. I am so sorry, and I owe you a huge apology for the months that I was mispronouncing it as Caton. It is not Caton, it is Caton. I am sorry, my bad. And then also we have the ghost host, Dada, joining us as well. And
oh, that's stuck. The ghost host stuck. I love it.
I'm making sure of it. So yeah, it's so awesome to be here with you guys. It's been a crazy up and down week, and definitely an exciting week for spaceflight. And we have some obligatory SpaceX news that we wanted to get to today. But before we do that, how's everyone doing? How's everyone feeling today? Jamie, let's start with you.
Oh,
it's
man,
great to see you.
It's good to be back. I've missed a bunch of shows. I'm sorry. I'm working on a very large project at Company X. Unfortunately, the project is not complete, so I'm hoping that I will be here next week, but there will be another several weeks in a row where I'm likely not on the show. But any opportunity I have to come back, boom, I'm back here. Doing great, though. Like, I love big projects. I love, like, doing the impossible and, like, forging these things through. It's really exciting to me, but also at the same time, Company X is what kind of pays for the show, and so I need to make sure that they're taken care of first.
Absolutely. It's so awesome to have you here today.
Well, let me be clear, by the way. Company X pays me, and then my salary pays for the show. So, like, that's how they don't pay for the show directly. But anyhow, yeah. They have no part in the show whatsoever.
Ryan, how you feeling this week? It's good to have you here.
Yeah, it's been a busy week with some interesting news. The elephant in the room, shall we say, took place on Tuesday, but the rest of the spaceflight news has been looking pretty good. So yeah, we're gonna have a jam-packed show today. Let's put it that way.
Definitely. We'll get to the elephant in the room later.
What happened on Tuesday? I don't remember.
I don't know. Something. Yeah. Some sort of poll or something. I don't know.
A poll. our 4-year poll.
Just something that we have every once in a while. Dada, how you doing? Are you feeling good this week?
Finally over being sick, although I think the little one's catching something else, but I'm hoping to stay away from it long enough to go on
hopefully
vacation
not.
for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing all right.
It's good to have you feeling a bit better. I hope that you don't come down and that your immune system is strong after just recovering from all this. It looks like we lost Jared there for a second, but I'm sure he'll be back. We have had a few issues with him getting kicked here and there, so we'll have to do some troubleshooting and see if we can't get that figured out. But
hang on, Mike. Before we get started, I do want to give a huge thank you to Kenneth Neely, who gifted 5 Tomorrow Space News memberships. And those people will be able to watch Tomorrow Space membership shows when this show is done. So we're going to go into like all of the whatever conversations after the fact. Maybe it'll be space related, maybe it won't. And if you were just gifted a membership by Kenneth, thank you again. You now have access to that post show for at least 1 month.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And looking forward to having you guys join us in a little bit after the main show. So looking forward to it. So yeah, should we get right into some of the space news first? Something that I thought was really cool this week is that you can teach an old dog new tricks, or rather an old dragon new tricks. And we had the CRS-31 spacecraft that just recently launched and docked to the International Space Station, did a really interesting reboost test. Oh, and good, we got Jared back. So good to have you back. Before I get into the reboost, how you feeling this week? Are you doing good?
Yeah, I think it's going to be some surprises from several of us today, and what you're expecting, myself included. So we'll have to see what we end up talking about.
Your microphone is terrible.
I can barely hear you. It's okay.
Great.
It's okay. We'll get that figured out. Well, here, something that I did want to show is that Spock Space on Twitter put together a little edit compilation that showed, highlighted rather, the test that happened this week. So this happened on Friday, November 8th, where SpaceX was able to test the Draco Thrusters on the Cargo Dragon capsule. And it was just these teeny pulses. A lot of people were expecting to see fire or a large bit of it, but as it points out there, if you look closely, it's just these teeny little pulses that they were doing with the Draco thrusters. And the purpose of this mainly was to collect data. This wasn't a super big reboost, NASA was saying, and it was kind of interesting the way that they put it. They phrased it as only did 7 out of 100ths of a mile at apogee, and then 7/10 of a mile at perigee. And basically what that means is 0.1 kilometers at apogee and 1.1 kilometers at perigee. That's the only amount of a reboost that this did. So really, really tiny reboost, but the data that they were able to collect from this can help determine if Dragon or future vehicles can do attitude control at the space station in case the Russians do pull out, in 2028 or sooner even. Then we're going to have some sort of way to be able to control the space station just so it doesn't start doing a weird tumble or something like that. And this test proved that, as well as, or at least helped collect data towards that, as well as what they're planning on doing in the future with the DeOrbit vehicle.
I'm sorry, who's thinking you're gonna see fire from Dracos firing in space?
Me.
You do understand how physics work, right?
Well, you know what I mean. Not necessarily fire.
Video that SpaceX published, the Dracos firing out of the forward thrusters that they have around the nose there. You could actually see just a little bit of orangey plume. It wasn't long, but it was a little bit. But I also assume those thrusters are much more powerful, the ones that were on the side. So it was a bit of, we weren't sure what we were going to see.
Right. They were doing this test for 12 and a half minutes, so I was expecting like a continuous stream to at least see some sort of plume. So that's my bad for expecting that, but
I think
it did happen,
a combination. Don't know if I'm coming through better.
That's
now.
way
You're coming
better.
through a lot better.
Okay, awesome. So I think you're getting a combination of lighting plus the fact that these thrusters might be a little less powerful. So I know lots of people were saying that during the Polaris Dawn one, and Massimo in our chat room is saying the video from Polaris Dawn shows fire. Well, that was very clearly taken on the night side of the Earth. Therefore, it becomes a lot more obvious with that. There's really great footage of the space shuttle firing its orbital maneuvering system thrusters, and you can temporarily see them as they turn on and the mix gets right. And then they're gone. You can also look at the up camera footage from Perseverance landing on Mars, and you can see on the sky crane as it's getting lowered that it looks like there is zero exhaust coming out of those nozzles on there, and that's welcome to rocketry. The exhaust is sometimes really hard to see. And it's like in race cars. Sometimes you don't see the fire. So you're not on fire, Ricky Bobby.
There's a couple good points from the chat. Massimo says reboosts or pulsed also need to be gentle with ISS structure. And GTH042 says, any word on how long it takes to dampen the impulse structurally? And I would point out that you need to be careful with the frequency at which you pulse that, because you can get into a resonant frequency with the rest of the structure and start bending and wiggling shit that you don't want to wiggle. Do we have any research based on that?
I think that it would all depend on, how strong it was and for how long and how many pulses. Like, it probably would change every single time. And I mean, here's what it can look like. Mostly we see just a white plume. This isn't just a video, just a still picture, but we see the white plumes, but sometimes on night side pictures like that, we can see a little bit of plume. So that's what I was expecting to see. I was expecting to see a little bit less than that continuously. I don't know why I was expecting that, but just from things that I've seen before of when we see white plumes, like from the Zvezda module or even some of the Progress modules. And I realized I've never seen footage of the Cygnus vehicle doing a reboost. I know that it can do it, and they have done that maneuver before. I've just never seen any footage to know.
There's a photo I saw the other day. It's so faint, but you can just see a little something coming out the aft end of Cygnus. from one of the reboosts earlier in the year. But it's really small, and that's, you know, like a nighttime photo, probably with a longer exposure. So it's artistic license. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Sometimes you got to put the filter on to see it. But yeah.
And to Iga's point, where you're boosting also matters. Where along this long stick you're inducing that pulse or that thrust makes a big difference as well.
And that's why they had to do that redocking maneuver instead of having the Cygnus come in on the free port that Crew 8 just undocked from. They had the Crew 9 Dragon undock from that forward port and reposition itself into the port that Crew 8 was taking on the upper side of the Destiny module, and that's why they did the burn from that portion. And whenever they do the burns with the Cygnus vehicle, it's basically on the opposite end of that hatch on the International Space Station where the Progress does that. So, yeah.
And
Where
not
you do
only
it
that, they
matters.
had to rotate the entire station 180 degrees because that front port is the forward port, which is, you know, facing the direction that the station is traveling. And these thrusters on Dragon are facing the aft of Dragon, or in other words, if they fired it without rotating the station, they would have actually lowered the station's orbit. So they had to rotate the entire station. They did like this whole kind of like flip over and then under and to make sure everything was right. And it was really weird. I was looking at the live feeds from the ISS, and I woke up on Friday and I was really confused because I didn't realize they had flipped the station yet, because I was looking at the feeds and the Earth was traveling the wrong way. And I was like, I swear it was going the other way yesterday. I didn't put two and two together until they tweeted the flip. And I was like, oh, suddenly everything makes sense. So I was very confused for a moment there. But yeah, it was kind of impressive to see the entire station like flip over and do this 180 degree thing. So the Dragon would be burning in the right way to actually raise the orbit and not lower the station.
That's
It would
awesome.
be really cool to watch a time lapse of that video feed. During that,
Yeah, it's difficult to see because it happened kind of on the nighttime side, so you don't really have the you can't really get your bearings with the Earth, but you can definitely see as the station approaches the terminator, instead of the Earth being like this in the camera, it's starting to become like this in the camera, and it's at a different angle. So you can see the station starting to move, but you can't see the whole thing.
They did it intentionally this time, Massimino says. and Josh, you need to come on and tell us more about this. I was a human tester to the original automated docking system, riding a vacuum stool to the big robot for a successful docking. What? What? Tell us more.
Wait, is that like the thing that Everyday Astronaut was doing when he did that that show for Facebook a couple of years, where they were riding on those docking maneuvers to kind of get the sense of how RCS thrusters actually work and figuring out the translations and all that sort of thing? Is
I
it
don't know,
that
but
type
that
of
sounds
thing
like-
to do
that
a
sounds like
test
fun.
to the docking system, like obviously an on the ground test? I'm assuming.
Was it or like when was it MythBusters or Top Gear? I forget which. They went to an
I don't
ice
know.
rink, and they had like hovercraft that they made with like leaf blowers to like blow themselves in a specific direction.
Similar type of thing, yeah. Do that, but you
that
have the
sounds-
docking systems, and you're trying to line it up and be able to get it to work right. I don't know. That's what I'm assuming he's talking about, because yeah, I want to hear more about that too.
Jamie, let's do a team building exercise. Let's go.
We'll see. We'll get a couple vehicles put together and see who's the best at manual docking. We'll make it. We'll charge tickets. It'll be a ride. Oh man. So Ryan, do you want to talk about? Holy crap! How excited are all of us about what's going to be happening in 8 days? Flight 6, and
Yeah.
holy crap!
Starship's going to be launching in 8 days, apparently, and this time around, it's not SpaceX waiting for the FAA.
Yeah,
So
they already
you
got
know,
the
all of these pending regulatory approval tweets that they probably had planned, they can't do those anymore because they actually have the approval from the FAA for this flight. And the reason for that is because the changes that SpaceX are making are going to be so small, and they're already going to be within the scope of the license that they already had, because they're going to be flying pretty much the same profile with the same the same hazard zones are going to be needed, but there is one key addition to the ship. SpaceX has announced they're going to be attempting to conduct for the second time a Raptor in space relight demonstration. Now, this is a really key thing to be able to do, because if you want to be able to send something 50 meters, nearly 50 meters tall, 9 meters wide into low Earth orbit, you should probably make sure that you know where it's going to re-enter, and it's not going to be uncontrollably re-entering overpopulated areas, say. So being able to relight your Raptor in space, that's kind of important, and that's something that, you know, you want confidence in before sending a ship fully orbital, which is something we're pretty sure the V1 ships now were probably never intended to go to orbit. There are these nearly orbital, suborbital demonstrator ships. Now they've got V2 coming just around the corner. They've been rolling some Raptor engines to Ship 33, the first V2 Starship, which is pretty exciting at Starbase. So V2 is right around the corner. We think they want to go orbital with V2. So if they can prove they can relight the Raptor in space with V1, they can then safely and with confidence send V2 to orbit, knowing they'll be able to re-enter it within a designated and planned location on Earth, instead of just, you know, Chang'e 5B style, just having a huge rocket stage re-enter anywhere on Earth within, you know, plus or minus 60 minutes. You know, will it enter over Spain or over the Philippines? I don't know, but you know, this is a really key test for in space and precise entry confidence.
And yeah, a lot of future things that they're going to want to do with that too. I think I would agree with you that version 1 probably never was intended to go orbital, and just test out all this other stuff that they want to collect data on to be able to do what they're planning really rapidly. So I'm really excited for it. But for this launch 6, you know, as you pointed out, that's still going to be the last of the version 1s. And we'll see version 2 hopefully on flight 7, and see what else that they have in mind for that. Black
Maybe
Eagle.
also-
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe also consider the Starship as a 50-meter tall, 9-meter wide hunk of steel that is designed to survive re-entry. So where you put it matters.
Yeah,
It's crazy to think about. One of the future ideas was having point-to-point transportation, and they could technically do that right now if they wanted to.
I mean, they've proven it a few times now. They can point to point from, you know, kind of out of nowhere, middle of nowhere Texas to middle of nowhere Indian Ocean. I wouldn't say that's the most high traffic air route in the world, but you know, maybe there is one person who is interested in going from middle of nowhere Texas to middle of nowhere Indian Ocean. I don't know, but they've proven it.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, was there anything else that we wanted to talk about? You did have mentioned some stuff in chat about some upgrades at Vandenberg. Do we want to mention that real quick, and what that might, maybe speculate on what that might mean? Jared, you seem excited about that. I want to hear your opinions about this too. Ryan, though, can you tell us a little bit about what you saw and what you were able to discover there?
If you want to go to Joe, just give me 1 second to sort the cat out, and then I'll be back in a second.
Sure. Family first.
Yes, and having just got a cat myself, thanks to the cat distribution system, I completely understand where Ryan's coming from at the moment. So I'm not even kidding. Maybe I'll show up my cat at some point today. Anyways, enough of a stall for time. Yes, I'm very excited to be seeing the changes coming to Slick 6, which is, as most of us would well agree, on this planet, the best launch site in the world, one of the prettiest launch sites in the world. You know, it's just so much cooler than a really flat area. It's got cool buildings. They look really nice. And there's going to be some upgrades coming. And I'm very excited. I do want to say this, which is that I'm literally looking at my calendar right now. 1, 2, 3 weeks ago, I was traveling up to San Luis Obispo, and here in California, Amtrak has a really cool train called the Pacific Surfliner, and I love taking it. And it goes from LA to San Luis Obispo and San Diego and back and forth throughout the day. And there's a section where it goes along the coast from Santa Barbara up past just to a little bit before San Luis Obispo, and it goes through Vandenberg, right past the launch pads. And actually, there was a Falcon 9 booster at LZ4, Landing Zone 4 out there, when we went past on both days. So I always try to take a gander at it, and Slick 6 is really tough to see because it's behind the hills, even from the perspective of where the train's at. But I can say that when I was there 3 weeks ago, there was a lot of traffic going in and out, and it was late in the afternoon on a Sunday, and then really late at night on a Thursday. So to see that kind of sustained traffic, there's definitely some stuff going down there. They still have the big ULA sign on Slick 6 though, so I don't know if that's just like an in memoriam or something to the previous owners or something. I don't know, but it's there. So I look forward, and she looks forward to, Missy looks forward to it as well, to have the big
They need a
X on
different
there.
permit to remove the sign.
Yeah, the California Coastal.
I'm just kidding.
The California Coastal Commission only allows one sign to be removed per decade. Because won't somebody please think of the lichen growing on the sign?
No. But I mean, it looks like they're installing another landing zone. I mean, what do you guys think this means? Do you think that this is going to be for some future project that's Starship related, or do we think that this is going to be for Falcon Heavy from Vandenberg?
Well,
That's what I think that this was for. Maybe I'm reading this wrong.
So there was the approval for up to 50 Falcon launches from Vandenberg, which of course right now is for Slick 4 East, which is their only active pad there, SpaceX's. However, we found out a few months ago that SpaceX was going to be taking over Space Launch Complex 6, which is of course the Delta 4 pad at Vandenberg, was going to be the space shuttle pad before the Challenger disaster in the 80s. So that's really a very historic pad. Slick 6, also a very pretty pad. And in the finding of no significant impact document, which is essentially an environmental document that says we have found there will be no significant impact for these upgrades, there is a diagram that shows two side-by-side round concrete pads that look and are labelled as landing zones. Now, I wonder what rocket that SpaceX currently flies requires two side-by-side concrete pads to be used as landing zones. Of course, that is Falcon Heavy, so maybe they wouldn't need two side-by-side landing zones for Falcon 9. They already have landing zone 4 next to their Slick 4 launch pad. So if they were thinking maybe we'll have so much Falcon cadence we need to be able to have a few Falcon 9 landing pads, then surely they only need like one more. Why would they need two side by side? But maybe Slick 6 is going to fly Falcon Heavy. Maybe. Jared, maybe it will finally come true. Vandenberg will host a Falcon Heavy. I doubt these would be for Starship. I'm not going to rule out Starship launching from Slick 6 in the far future, but right now it really seems like SpaceX is hammering down Falcon 9 and maybe Falcon Heavy cadence from Vandenberg. Jared, you're itching.
Say it.
Come on, I want it. I want the Falcon Heavy from Vandenberg. All I'm gonna say is that back in the day, this is how long I've been around for and covering spaceflight. Falcon Heavy was originally going to do its test flight from Vandenberg. So, right? And then also they were going to do the in-flight abort test at Vandenberg as well. So, I'm just saying, you owe us one, SpaceX. So, there's two things I'm never forgiving you for, and it's not flying Falcon Heavy, and it's not flying the in-flight abort from Vandenberg. So, if you give us Falcon Heavy, you got at least one. So, but... I don't know. We might get a 3-barrel super heavy for all. Yeah, like Eka just said, wouldn't that be awesome? A 3-barrel super heavy coming from Slick 6.
That would be awesome.
Like that would be ridiculous at that point.
I would like to see Falcon Super Heavy even. Strap 2 more to that bad boy. I'm sure Elon would hate it, but anyway, that's just dreaming. Anyway, so
either way, I think this concept is really, or this, I would say, this kind of plan that they've put out, these diagrams that they've put out in this official document. I personally think this is really interesting because we've seen so much Starbase Starship development. We're seeing them prepare for Starship out in Florida through flyovers and satellite imagery and such. And a question that very often comes up is, when will Falcon retire? Do you think Falcon will retire in 2, 3, 4 years? I think this is a very clear vote of confidence in the Falcon 9 system. Why would SpaceX be proposing a potential brand new Falcon Heavy pad with Starship just around the corner, as some people say? This is, to me, maybe these are old and they're never actually going to become anything, but I think this could be a very clear vote of confidence in the Falcon family as, you know, a really reliable workhorse rocket to deliver Department of Defense payloads into space. Because, let's be honest, why else would you need a Falcon Heavy from Vandenberg?
Yeah.
Just like,
obviously
just
we're
like
gonna
I
do some
think
cool
individual transportation is never going to go away, because taking a bus to every location is a waste. I don't see that the services provided by Falcon 9 or even Falcon Heavy can completely be replaced by Starship.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And I
Yeah.
think that there's still a lot of things that we could still do with the whole Falcon family. I hope they never stop. You know, petition to make Falcon America's Soyuz that is still flying 60 years from now.
Yeah,
and
I
to
think
that
there's going
and
to
to
be.
that end, and to that end, I think I still think there's going to be a market for the likes of Firefly and Rocket Lab with their smaller rockets. Not just
Absolutely.
everybody big.
Yeah. There's still plenty of need for it. What
Yeah.
were you going to say, Jared?
I was gonna say, Kevin Reed in the chat room has a really good point, which is that you don't need a 50-foot school bus to take one student to school, but you do need a 50-foot school bus in order to resolve an individual person from orbit. That's for sure, and that's where something like Falcon Heavy will come from. I also feel like too, Starship is very much a field of dreams kind of rocket, where at this point it's not entirely sure what people are going to fly on it outside of the human landing system for Artemis or really big Starlings, but
Hey.
it's field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. So we'll see what this enables. And I mean, honestly, there's some really exciting stuff that people are doing with miniaturization of like satellites and geosynchronous orbit and other things like that. So you can imagine like basically firing off this shotgun blast of communication satellites into geo, and just like one Starship is all you need to do that to start your company. Like, especially if you get Starship down to the 7-figure launch costs in that region to do something like that, to lift, I don't know, maybe like 200 satellites at a certain weight with all of them together. Like you could really start doing some absolutely wild stuff.
I'm going to push back on that just a little bit, because you're still depositing everything into the same general orbital plane within the tolerance of what kind of delta V you can get for different orbital velocity or different orbital inclinations. And that can be problematic, populating that too much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to, obviously we don't want to overpopulate something, and you get something like Kessler syndrome and other things like that occurring. And also, I think it'll change too how we have to do satellite manufacturing or probe development or other things like that. Like Massimo in our chat room hitting the really good points today, which is multiple Hubble-like telescopes per launch or one big Louvre class telescope per launch. Like, if Starship really does enable what it wants to enable, we got to figure out how to, with the funding, we got to figure out how to start enabling these things at much lower costs. And like that, I know I always talk about bespoke being how space telescopes are made, but I always do want to point this out too, which is that doesn't mean I like the fact that they're all bespoke and made that way. It would be really cool to find a plug and play system, like sort of the much hotly talked about during its time era Mariner Mark II plug and play system that JPL developed in the 80s and 90s to try to lower the cost of flagship missions during that time period, which was a period of intense budget crunch at NASA. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think,
GTH-042.
if you build it, they will come. I like too but yeah, go ahead. Very large orbital management and insertion transporter, Starship acronym.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Roger C said earlier, Polar Orbit Space Station. I would love to see something like that, because if we got something like that, then there could be a future of crewed launches regularly from Vandenberg. That would be amazing to see.
Josh just mentioned something, which is in the chat, just on that. So we'll have to see. I do want to talk about that.
About
not
the wooden
this
satellites?
week, but that is such a cool idea to see how that
Big
satellite,
sat.
I think it's the Japan,
Yep.
has developed, that they're going to deploy very soon to see how that
Made with
ends up
traditional
working out.
joinery. I freaking love it.
Oh,
I'm
so cool. I
excited
love
for
it.
this test.
What was old is new again, and sometimes it's just so cool to see these. We always think about like carbitanium and
Right.
all the other
Some
really
exotic,
cool,
crazy stuff.
like stuff. As you can tell, I'm just thinking of all the words today. But and then somebody's just like, "Have you guys thought about wood?"
Right?
I mean, like
It's a
like
good
an
thermal
old ship.
insulator.
What I love about this one too is I think each panel is a different type of wood, so that they can collect as much data as they can
Yes.
about different types of wood. And I'm so excited. If this works well, oh my gosh, then I'm gonna start making CubeSat sets out of wood. Screw
Yeah.
it, man. Let's do it. I can do that right now. I don't need a fancy aerospace degree. I can do that right now.
We're gonna build. So tomorrow's space program, we're gonna have to purchase a plot of forest somewhere.
Yes.
And that's that. And then lumberyard will be our manufacturing facility.
I have quite a
So-
few places in mind, and if if the ponderosa pine works, then I am in a location right nearby one where they have lots of stuff that Forest Service has already pre-marked a whole ton of trees that they want removed because of forest fires and all those sorts of reasons. And
Yeah.
for a $15 a year permit, I can go in and harvest as much good
Wow.
ponderosa pine as I want.
You mean I've been in
actually
aerospace since I
great.
was 17?
That's actually really cool. I did not know you could do that. I was
Yes.
today years old when I found that out, and that's great too because
And
it
there's
helps-
lots of similar things I found that are like that in California, because you guys have forest fire problems all the time too. So
Oh,
sorry
yeah,
to
we
get
got
off topic here, but there's a thing like that you can do that they want you to do to help kind of maintain the management. And even if a forest fire does come through, it'll stop at this point where they've done very precise thinning, like an arborist and someone with the forest service is like, this particular one right here needs to be removed because it's going to cause problems.
Yeah,
Not
Yeah, I've been out-
industrial stuff.
I've been out backpacking before where we've been on the trail and there's the Conservation Corps people there that are basically surveying the trees, and just they're in camp with us and we all just kind of chat for a little bit. That's so cool. I could go make satellites out of
Yeah,
what's
if we can
in
make
the
if this
natural-
wooden satellite
Yes!
test works, we're about to become satellite carpenters.
They have no idea what's coming. So
What is old is new again. Well,
Yeah,
anyway,
it's
I want to bring Jamie back on and kind of get to the elephant in the room. We went off on a long tangent there, and welcome back, Jamie.
Yeah, good to be back. In the
So-
time that I was gone, by the way, I installed a second light in my little setup, and I completely reprogrammed my Stream Deck, and then I added a hotkey so I can mute and unmute myself with the touch of a button. I was listening the whole time, but I'm like, I can make use of this time.
Very good. So yeah, on Tuesday there was a poll. And there was a national poll.
We need
a
to
way of
rename this
putting
episode to Tuesday's National Poll.
it was a small one. Not everybody made it out. So.
Yeah. So yeah.
Trump is going to be the next president, and what that means for us and what we care about the most on this show, being spaceflight. Let's talk about what we think that the next 4 years might look like and what might happen. And I'm really eager to get our audience's opinions too on who do we think the next NASA administrator is going to be, and should we bring back National Space Council? So yeah, let's go around. Jamie, I'd like to hear from you first. What do you think that this is now going to look like in terms of space policy and NASA and the space industry in general?
I hadn't actually thought of, you brought up a really good point of NASA. I had not thought about the NASA administrator boy, wouldn't it be cool if they brought Bridenstine back? Oh man, one of my favorite NASA administrators. Like, oh my goodness, I would love to see him return. I'm not saying he would. I haven't thought about NASA really at all. What I've been really thinking about are
we were all mixed about him, by the way.
We were? Why?
Yeah, we were. We were all mixed. We had.
Wait. When he first started, we were like, climate
Yes,
denier, anti-science, blah blah, and he came in and like he just knew how to get things done, and he absolutely won me over, 100%.
Yeah, I feel I need to. From here to the end of time, I will never not admit how wrong I was about Bridenstine. I was fully on board with throwing him under the bus in when he was selected, and boy did he show up and show out. And I have never
Hearts
been.
and minds.
I am so happy to be so wrong about things like that, and boy did he just really bring it. And by the end of it, we were going, no, don't leave. We were on our hands and knees grabbing his ankles trying to hold him, but he was just off to the private sector. That's where he's been. So
speaking of private sector, Gup said, I would love to see Kathy back at NASA. I assume
Kathy
Gup
Leaders?
means Kathy Leaders. And no, Kathy is at SpaceX now, and I will not give her up. How dare you, sir?
So is Gerst.
Yep, we got Gerst too. Also not going to give up Gerst. Can't have them back. Sorry, they're ours now. Great people inside of the company.
And I know you'll never give up this person either, but can you guys imagine what a world we would live in if the NASA administrator was the current CEO of SpaceX? Not
I was
Elon
thinking
Musk,
about that.
but Gwen Shotwell. What a crazy NASA administrator she would make. I know that wouldn't happen, but that just crossed my mind. It's like, whoa.
I think for me, because again, I hadn't considered NASA, so I think I need to put a little bit more time into like thinking about that. But I have been thinking about like, what does this mean for space in general? And the big thing holding back space is just insane amounts of unnecessary red tape.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. All of this stuff.
fun.
Everyone has their finger in that pie, trying to hold people back. And so,
funding.
Chris says Tory. Tory would be a fun NASA
Bruno.
administrator. Yeah,
He
absolutely.
would.
Another one that I absolutely love.
He would.
Removing, like you look. I mean, you see Elon complain about it constantly on his X channel or his X profile. Well, I don't know what to call it.
Whatever.
But like, FAA is a problem. The fish and wildlife is a problem, and this whole like wastewater thing where you're like, it's clean drinking water. What are you talking about? Well, no, because it's from a site, it's classified. It's like, what?
Then that
Where's
means that
common
my
sense in any of this? There's no
Right?
common sense, and so I'm hopeful that this administration will remove a lot of the unnecessary red tape and like add some common sense back into this stuff. Because it became letter of the law, not spirit of the law, when it was a lot of these rules. And then people try to defend it of like, oh, well, no, because it could be contaminated. It's like, it's clean water. And by the way, it's not just Company X. It's Blue Origin as well. They're coming after everyone.
And even
it's
if they are, yeah, I was really shocked by that.
Yeah.
And even if they are right about this, then that means that our drinking water is industrial wastewater, and we have to revamp the whole thing.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Where did common sense go? There are all of these regulations, and if you think it's bad in like Florida, imagine Vandenberg, right? I mean, I'll leave that there because like I don't want to get in too much trouble, but like it ain't good out. It's even worse. And so my hope is this administration will be like, no, this is stupid. We want to advance. We want to be better. We want to push towards space. Let's remove this stupid stuff. Now, there is some legit stuff that you need to keep, but like, yeah.
We can get rid of the $45,000 a day bagel budget.
So that's rid of that. That's my view. I actually think this is going
Bagels
to
are
be
important. I don't know if y'all know this.
They can
I gotta
buy
tell
their
you,
own.
I
We
will be
pay
a
them
bagel
enough for
defender
it.
to the,
Why am I
to the
paying
day I
for it?
die. I will. You bagels and cream cheese. I will eat that to the day I die.
I am on a
defend
diet.
these
I am on a
bagels at
diet.
all
I can't
costs.
have bagels right now.
I am
And
not
oh my
on a
God, I
diet.
want one
I'm-
so bad.
I'm not on a diet. Carb me up, baby. Let's go.
I
for it.
can't.
Let's-
I can't read that. What Airvale said. Let me see if I can scroll up.
Totally agree.
Totally
about,
agree about out of control regulations, but isn't the issue the wastewater touches the engines and exhaust before going into the environment?
Okay. So, I mean, I guess maybe you could do a bit of an analysis there, but would you prefer the concrete go into the environment instead? Right? Like, it's so much worse when you don't have the water there. And, like, again, it doesn't make any sense. So, also, it's touching liquid oxygen, which is half of water, and then potentially some methane, which is likely going to evaporate back up immediately. So I think you're basically just water. I don't know that to be true, but like, yeah.
I don't think so. I think the exhaust products are a bit more. Yeah, I think it's a bit more complicated than that with it.
It might be.
Well,
It very well may be, but like it's not this huge issue. It is not this huge issue. It is easily solved, and it's turned into this big huge thing where people are just freaking out. Someone said, I can't drink the wastewater that comes off of my car. Right, sure, but you still have that water that gets dumped back into environment. So you are also dumping chemicals into the environment.
There are places.
You should never wash your car again because of that.
No, there
Or
are
apply-
places. There are places and regulations in certain cities and such, like specifically where I work in Long Beach, where a car washing service has to recapture the water drain off from and reuse that water from their car, like washing cars. So this water thing is kind of everywhere, and I would say that it is still important to consider, but at the same time, we shouldn't let that hamper progress in technology.
Also, I don't know if this is true, but it might be. Massimo says the deluge water was tested, it was still clean. So if we're at a point where we've tested it, it's still clean, and they're still saying no, it's industrial waste, and like again, what is going on here? So I don't know if any of that's true. My point is, and this is not a hill I'm willing to die on, right? Like there could absolutely be something I'm not considering here. The point is the regulations are out of control.
They are.
Just generally speaking, the points are out of and they need to be reeled back. And by the way, it's not just aerospace where they're out of control. It's everywhere. And so I'm hoping that a lot of this gets pulled back, and it's like, okay. So I think this is going to be fundamentally a great thing for all aerospace. SpaceX, Blue Origin, Firefly, everyone. I think this is going to potentially enable a new renaissance in aerospace.
I hope so.
Like the other one I hope it helps is Boom Supersonic, right? I'm really excited for them. We need to muffle sonic booms and whatnot, but everyone's so afraid of it right now. Like let's bring supersonic flight back, right? Like this could be so widespread and fundamentally good.
Yeah, I feel like with the environmental regulations and other things like that, it is a real case of you can have your cake, where you have environmental regulations and you can eat it too, where you can have advances in spaceflight happening. There's no reason why both can't be hand in hand together, as opposed to opposition happening frequently and constantly. And as to what that balance is, or what that collaboration looks like, there's people much smarter than me who can figure that out. But it is not an end all be all, one or the other, take it or leave it kind of situation.
The problem is it's not about the environment anymore. The environment is the excuse. They're using it as a political mechanism to stop projects. Mm-hmm. So I don't disagree with helping the environment. I think we should be good stewards to our planet. I'm not saying we should just destroy everything. What I'm saying is you should not use the environment as a political mechanism to block other projects. I think that is disingenuous and stupid. And they sell it as environmentalism, but that's not what it is at all.
And I wouldn't be surprised how many times that it's a justification for your job, a justification for your department to exist.
Yep. Yep. All of that is again, be good stewards to the planet. Like, do good things, because we're all living here together. If we pollute and make it awful, it's going to be awful for everyone. So I am not condoning doing that. But what I am saying is, don't use the environment as a political mechanism to stop projects you don't like. That lessens the whole thing for actually supporting the environment. It is more harmful.
To that end, how do you put guardrails on businesses that are not entering into projects with that good faith?
Yeah, I don't have good answers for you. I can say that there are definite problems that have been extended and are like being abused today. How we fix this, I will leave that to the politicians. But I think, or even the rule makers, the lawmakers, right? Ultimately, they need to be the ones that go, okay, this is what we need to do. But what we've done isn't working. What we've done isn't correct. And so we need to take a good hard look at it and go, okay, how do we put up the guardrails in a way that makes sense, is fair for everyone, it's protecting the environment, but like also we're being good stewards to the environment, but we're not being dumb about this stuff, and we're not weaponizing this. That's ultimately what we need to do.
But I have to challenge that a little bit, because a lot of what I've seen from in different industries, like for example, there's a company drilling near the Grand Canyon in Arizona.
Yeah.
And they're I forget what they're drilling for, but the local Indian reservation is pushing back because that's part of their sacred land. Not sure how they got permits to do that, and they're destroying groundwater for that population. Mm-hmm. But they did everything legally, and they got permission to drill there, and
except for the areas that are technically part of their reservation. Like, forget whether they think it's holy land or not. It's technically on their reservation, which is technically a sovereign nation, and they didn't even ask permission or apply for any sort of permits with the Native American tribe there. So
yeah, it sounds like they're out of permit at that point. I mean, to me, it sounds like they
It's a
are
different
outside of the
process at
rules
that
and
point.
regulations. Yeah, it sounds like they were not acting in good faith. And so, yeah, like there needs to be something against the good faith. But we're exceeding the scope of like what we're talking about here. But I do think that it's gone too far. It's gone too far to the left, and it needs to pendulum swing a little bit back towards center. Now, I'm not saying it needs to pendulum swing all the way to the right. I'm just saying that like we've gone too far in one direction. Let's stabilize this thing a little bit and make it a little bit less insane.
yeah. And I mean, the big thing that, forget regulations for a minute, the big thing that I have been super frustrated by for years is how everything is done by committee. And there's so many processes to just get to the point of approving to, okay, now we can start bending metal and start building something.
Yeah, Nick is basically saying I can't assume that all companies will act in good faith. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying that the systems we have in place now are bad faith actors, and we need to remove that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say we need to remove that and try again with something that actually does make sense. And I think this administration will start to work towards that. Now, they may go too far. I don't know. I'm not advocating that. I don't know, but I think at least we'll start stepping in the correct direction. How everything is left and funny how everything is left or right in the U.S. Yeah, I mean we are a two-party system, but I mean it was more to make my point, right? Like I don't think too far to the left or too far to the right actually makes sense. It needs to be somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
I think that if either of that is at play, you already are coming at it in bad faith. It shouldn't be political. Whatever department you are, whatever thing that you are trying to enforce or oversee or be responsible for, if you're already coming at it from a political standpoint, you've already failed at your job, in my opinion.
Yeah. Mike, I wanted to ask you specifically, because you mentioned that committees, you don't like committees. What was it specific about that? Because I have a slightly different opinion on that in some respects, but I also want to hear like what you have to say about that before I drop my opinion to see if because I'm pretty sure we're actually in the same wavelength. We might just express it in a different way.
Possibly. So the thing that I've dug the most into is a lot of the crewed space flight stuff. I haven't dug as much into the processes for the selections for the Explorer programs or the flagship missions. I usually only will see that once, winners are announced or something like that, and I'm not really digging into very much of the process. So digging into the process of the human spaceflight stuff, at least since the shuttle era, and more kind of late shuttle era, in my opinion, there's just been this huge kind of bloat of all these crazy amounts of safety systems and protocols. Not saying that we shouldn't be safe or look at every single, potentiality, but there are entire, groups of people, at Plumbrook Station, or now what is it called, the Armstrong Space Center, that all they do is go over thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of, checklists and potential checklists that eventually get passed on to a different committee that then has to review it and see if they did everything right, that eventually gets passed on to another committee that shortens it down, that then passes it on to another committee to pass that on to the actual astronauts. So we're talking about, thousands of people that are involved in the process of just coming up with the checklist for what is now routine 6-month missions to the International Space Station. It's like, you mean you didn't have these safety protocols or these, hypotheticals figured out when you first started it? Sure, as we get new information, new things come in, and we should, incorporate that when new information comes up. But do you need to review each and every single item on the list for something that we've been doing now for almost 30 years routinely? Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, we want to be safe about it, but let's consider the new stuff and not throw away and redo all of our work every 6 months, essentially. That drives me insane.
Yeah.
Am I wrong here, or
No.
You very much just described that great scene I love from the movie Ford versus Ferrari, where Shelby and Ford are in the top C-suite, and Ford is like, give me a reason why I shouldn't fire you and cancel your whole team right now. And Shelby sees this red folder that's been passed to every single person finally make its way to Ford's hands, and he goes, oh, well, I haven't been able to do my job because that red folder right there, which has had to go through 50 different people in 10 different committees, I've had to go through 50 different people in 10 committees. Maybe if you just let me run the show, things would go at that. So that's kind of where you're at with it, in that there. It was kind of more like there's just, the scaffolding is too complex for what it may necessarily need to actually be there. I was more thinking it was just you didn't like the committees and it was too broad of scope. And I always just feel like having outside perspectives from a multitude of areas is always a great way in order to determine what you want a good decision to actually make there. But it sounds like yours is completely different from what I was thinking it was going to be, and it's very difficult for me to disagree with you on that front. So,
is it that there's a misunderstanding of what the mission is from all the people in the committees?
That's another big issue, is I think there's a big communication problem between all these different departments and agencies. I mean, this certainly is at NASA. That's all I've really looked at the most as far as American government is concerned. And there's a lot of miscommunication or lack of communication between the different NASA centers. And it's evolved into this weird sort of competition that, has come out for different things. And I don't know. I feel like that is probably true in a larger sense of the government as a whole, that there is a lot of miscommunication or lack thereof entirely, and people are doing each other's work all over again for them just to be able to get to a point where they can have that meeting and figure out whatever their plan of action is going to be for whatever issues that they're working on.
I feel like some of what you're talking about could be resolved by having, when you get into a meeting at work and it just so happens to involve, 3 people and they've got some other issue that needs to be addressed, but it's not the focus or the scope of that meeting, and they start to tangent off and discuss about, no, let's rope that in and bring that back. We're all here for this specific reason. Let's handle the things that are on this specific reason and take all that stuff offline and deal with that. If everybody's legitimately in it in good faith for, the benefit of humanity and keeping the environment clean and stuff like that, we should all have that good faith action in mind, and it not just like try to continually rail whatever our political bent is or our little pet projects. You know, we're here to do a thing. Let's do the thing.
Yeah. Massimo's really good comment once again in the chat room today, which is, speaking of competition, remember that NASA centers are often in competition with each other to remain relevant, keep the funds coming. Sometimes it's at the cost of efficiency and common sense. And this is something that earlier this year JPL had a shock to the system with, where they had to do a major round of layoffs when funding didn't come through in certain projects. So yeah, and we're going to have to see what happens in the upcoming years, because there's some expectations based on previous actions from previous administrations, and we'll kind of see where this is going to go in some of the areas.
But is that not good, right? Like, we shouldn't just keep NASA centers open for the sake of keeping them open, right? They need to add value to the country as a whole. Mm-hmm. And
absolutely.
if they're losing their relevance, like I could make some arguments against SLS and all the centers working on SLS. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be working on next generation space propulsion. But since they don't want to do anything next generation, they're just working on old legacy stuff. Well, how are they relevant anymore? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's really what happened with JPL. They got so focused on Mars sample return that they forgot that there's more to the solar system than just Mars. So they ended up having to rescope a lot of people, and then and redo that. And they did just put out a new thing for Mars sample return that is significantly better than the original proposal that they did. And it's miles ahead, and it's that cutting edge stuff that JPL is always known for, not the real big kind of poop that JPL put out for the first edition, whatever you want to call it, of that Mars sample return architecture proposal. But you know, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of question marks coming up that are going to be answered within the next year or two that I'm very interested in to see if we're going to see a repeat of the first time this administration did this, or if we're going to see something different happening this time.
Go ahead.
Whoever becomes NASA administrator, I hope that they, remember the purpose of these different administrative centers being in different states and having all the different capabilities in different states, so that you can get the political support. The reason for splitting it up all over the country was so that you could get as much support from the local congressmen and representatives who vote on the budget for NASA and all of its programs that it does. And by setting them up into a culture of competing with each other, you've defeated the purpose of having it that way in the first place. The purpose is for them to have a synergistic program. Yes, they might be working on individual things themselves, but it all comes together into some sort of synergy, and it justifies itself. And I worry that it has become this giant, federal jobs program. There is a lot of things that I think that are essential that they do, but a lot that probably could be, slashed or repurposed. I'm not saying I don't want to fire a bunch of people, but I would like to see things repurposed in such a way that everyone's skills and talents could be used to their maximum ability. And I'm just going to throw this out here. I think that a great NASA administrator would be Jeff Grayson. I think that
that's a good one too. That's a really good one too. I think we lose data in like 60 seconds, and so I think we should probably.
You had a hard cut off. My bad.
We should probably end the show right around here. I do want to throw one little other nuke in there, and then we'll continue talking about it in the post show, which is, I think the Mars sample return mission is stupid. We should just send humans. All right. On that note, I think humans are closer than the return mission. On that note, I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. I'll take us out, Mike. We've got a bunch of people who contribute to the show week after week, month after month, year after year. Their names are here on the slates. Of course, there are multiple levels. Some of those levels don't get your name in the show, and you guys are the ones who help keep this show going. It does cost money to produce this show. It does. Space Mike has been doing, by the way, I think just a killer job. And thank you to Dave Avery, who also contributed 5 additional Space News memberships. Thank you so much for helping to make that go. I believe that means that this week's show, we've got 11 new members who've entered in, and we're, like I said, we're about to enter that membership show. If you are a member, head over to youtube.com/TMRO, click on your memberships area, and you'll see a live link to that member show coming up in just a few moments. Thank you all so much for watching, and we're going to continue to talk about, I think, probably continue to talk about politics because we didn't get to Ryan. We're going to lose Dutta, and I think I want to hear Jared's rebuttal to don't do sample return, just send humans. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.